Hello everybody. In this video we will discuss granular methanogenic sludge in anaerobic high-rate reactors for industrial wastewater treatment. The learning objectives are understanding of the requirements of high-rate anaerobic treatment, understanding the development of anaerobic reactor technology, and explaining the role and characteristics of granular sludge in anaerobic high-rate reactors. An anaerobic high-rate reactors is characterized by high volumetric conversion rates. High conversion rates can only be realized when certain conditions are met. We know that the growth rate and biomass yield of anaerobic microorganisms is extremely low. Therefore, for anaerobic reactor systems, a high biomass retention capacity is the prime conditions for achieving a high volumetric conversion capacity. Efficient biomass retention can be attained by physical separation or by biomass immobilization, for instance, in the form of granular sludge. In addition to the low growth rates, anaerobic bacteria and archaea have a very narrow substrate spectrum and are very sensitive to specific environmental conditions. Therefore, biomass adaptation and acclimation are indispensable for growing the microbial consortium that is capable of degrading the respective wastewater pollutants. Growth of microorganisms can be optimized when environmental conditions are close to the optimal growth conditions, and this concerns the prevailing redox, reactor pH, nutrients availability, presence or non-presence of toxic compounds, etc. A high COD conversion capacity can only be achieved when the wastewater is in good contact with the microorganisms, meaning that mass transfer limitation from liquid to sludge must be minimized. In addition to the substrate, also the metabolic products such as hydrogen, VFAs, methane and CO2 should be effectively removed from the production site to keep the conversion reactions going. The upflow anaerobic sludge blanket or USB reactor developed in the 1970s is the first high-rate reactor that meets all these requirements. Its success marked a breakthrough in anaerobic treatment. The design is very simple, with no mechanical parts inside, making construction and maintenance inexpensive. Improved sludge retention by granulation is regarded as a real asset of the technology. In a USB reactor, wastewater enters at the bottom by means of an influent distribution device. The wastewater passes in an upward mode to the sludge bed, where the sludge settles by gravitational forces. And during sludge passage, all biodegradable organics are converted into biogas, leading to turbulence and thus mixing in the reactor. At the top part of the reactor, the produced biogas is separated by a gas-liquid-solid separator or GLSS, which may look like a reverse funnel. This GLSS creates a quiescence zone on top that will act as an inbuilt secondary clarifier. The settled solids in this zone will eventually slide back to the reactor body. The most important features of USB reactor include a complete uncoupling of solids retention time from hydraulic retention time. The sludge can be retained in the reactor for 100-200 days or even more. Meanwhile, the liquid may pass in a couple of hours. No electromechanical parts such as mixers inside, providing proper conditions for sludge aggregation. Therefore, sludge separation can be fully attained by gravitational forces, reducing costs. Very high loading rates can be applied due to the high sludge concentration, with loading capacity 10 times higher than activated sludge processes. And because of the applicable high loading rate, the reactor's footprint is very small, which is very convenient for installing the reactor at the premises of the industry. And if granulation indeed occurs, sludge becomes more compact, resulting in extremely high sludge concentrations and low hydraulic retention times. So, how do we get granular sludge? For growing granular sludge, a delicate startup procedure needs to be followed, in which we apply a microbial selection process by slowly increasing both the sludge loading rate and the hydraulic loading rate. During the startup, the biogas production rate slowly increases, causing an increased turbulence inside the reactor, increasing the shear forces on the sludge particles. Suspended biomass that cannot resist these shear forces will be washed from the reactor. Now, let's have a closer look to the different phases of the startup. At the start of phase 1, the reactor is inoculated and the applied loading rate is very low. In our example, this is 0.5 kilograms of COD per cubic meter reactor volume per day. Because of the upward liquid flow, the sludge bed will expand and sludge particles will leave the reactor with the effluent. In fact, the effluent may turn black and the reactor is characterized by negative treatment efficiency. There is more COD leaving the reactor than entering. At the same period, digestible organic matter present in the seed sludge and present in the effluent will be converted into methane. Biogas production is starting, which adds an additional degree of mixing and turbulence to the liquid phase. As a result, the sludge bed further expands, lifting the light material to the top. In this phase of the startup, it is very important to keep the effluent volatile fatty acids or VFA concentrations and particularly acetate to a very low level, since they are the precursors of methane production. Loading rates can only be increased when biogas production is increasing and total VFA concentrations are below 200 to 300 milligrams per liter, and only then you will select for methanogens with a high substrate affinity. In phase 2, a steady increase in the volumetric organic loading rate is applied. Meanwhile, the upflow velocity increases, as well as the turbulence caused by the increasing biogas production rates. And as a result, a large part of the seed sludge will be lifted and washed out with the effluent. In this phase, the effluent may even turn black and a negative treatment efficiency continues. In phase 2, it is more important to carefully monitor the biogas production as well as the effluent VFA concentrations. But also in phase 2, a separation between the heavy and the light sludge occurs. The sludge concentration in the top part will become less and less, and the effluent will be less colored. And the sludge concentration at the bottom of the reactor will increase. Admissible organic loading rates may increase to 5 kilograms COD per cubic meter reactor volume per day. By inspecting the sludge bed at the bottom, the first sludge agglomerates with a higher mass density will become visible. During phase 3 of the startup, the total sludge concentration in the reactor will increase. The rate of increase depends on the net sludge yield and the experienced sludge washout. In addition to the amount, also the average sludge density will increase and sludge aggregates or sludge granules will be formed. Following a stepwise increase in the volumetric organic loading rate, the design load will be reached and the startup phase is considered finalized. An anaerobic sludge granule can be defined as a dense, spherical shaped microbial aggregate consisting of microorganisms, inert matter, and extracellular polymers. Granular sludge is characterized by a high metabolic activity and a high settlability. Now, these words high are rather subjective and can be more specified for our methanogenic sludge granules. The metabolic conversion capacity of anaerobic granular sludge is in the range of 0.1 to 2 kilograms of methane COD per kilogram VSS per day and will depend on the wastewater composition. For instance, when treating wastewater with a high concentration of suspended solids, the resulting biomass activity will be low. On average, the typical value for methanogenic sludge granules coming from industrial wastewater treatment plants is something between 0.3 to 1 kilograms of methane COD per kilogram VSS per day. The settleability is the most important physical property of the granules, as this determines the applicable upward velocities in the bioreactor. Settling velocities of methanogenic aggregates range between 2 and 100 meters per hour, whereas anaerobic sludge granules from industrial reactors are typically characterized by settling velocities between 30 and 75 meters per hour. And this guarantees a high upflow velocity and thus a high loading rate in the reactor. If wastewater characteristics are not very suitable for granule formation, the methanogenic consortia form pellets or flocks, which will also be retained by gravity in the USB reactor. Owing to the very low growth yield and some washout of newly grown biomass, the average net yield of granular sludge in anaerobic high-rate reactors is very low. In fact, the granular sludge yield equals about only 1% or 1 kilogram dry biomass per kilogram COD removed. Therefore, excess granular sludge is stored in separate storage tanks and sold on the market for starting up new reactors. The formation of granular sludge was an important driver for the breakthrough and success of anaerobic high-rate reactors for the treatment of organically polluted industrial wastewater. The many different types of high-rate reactors rely on the high density of active methanogenic biomass having excellent settling properties. And yes, the actual composition, structure and morphology fully depend on the type of wastewater that is treated. The result is a micro-ecosystem consisting of a wide variety of bacteria and archaea. Now let's have a look inside this anaerobic granule. The granule composition, structure and morphology fully depend on the type of wastewater that is treated. And based on the difference in kinetic properties of the different trophic groups, a layered structures of sludge granules can be expected when the reactor is, for instance, fed with sugar-rich wastewater. Here, in this cited paper, this gives a schematic presentation of how such layering may evolve. When feeding with sugars, the acidifiers will proliferate at the outside of the granule, since they have the highest growth rate and the highest yield of all the trophic groups. The intermediate products of the carbohydrate acidifying bacteria will diffuse into the granule by subsequently converted by the acetogenic bacteria to acetate. And finally, acetate will be converted to methane and CO2 in the center of the sludge granule. Now, notably, when a mixture of volatile fatty acids or proteins are fed, such layered structure is much less pronounced or even absent. And this can be attributed to the more or less similar conversion rates of substrate and intermediates. I do hope that this anaerobic granule biomass has raised your interest in the technology.